So in that time, just as in Christendom, people's citizenship in a nation state was also connected to their religion. So for instance, if you were part of the Byzantine Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, if you were a citizen, that means you were a Christian. So what scholars have said is that this statement was said specifically that when certain people changed their religion, and when the Muslim community was under siege, that this was tantamount, that they changed their religion, that they basically were aiding and abetting the enemy. This was somewhat, we could say, treason. This was an act of treason. So it wasn't necessarily because they were left the religion of Islam as a faith per se, but that this was an act of treason. Because there were people during the time of Prophet Muhammad who accepted Islam and then left Islam and they weren't killed. I mean, we have this in Islamic history. So obviously, the statement that he made was not a uniform statement. So firstly, address this and say very explicitly, the mainstream Islamic understanding is that all human beings have the freedom of religion. And this is said in our Quran. Let there be no compulsion in religion because truth stands clear from error. You don't need to tell them it in Arabic. But it's the second surah, 256 ayah, La ikraha fi din qad tabayyana rushdu min al-ghayy. And so in the surah, those who reject faith, to you your religion and to me mine. Those people who are hostile towards the Muslims, to you your religion and to me mine. So we believe that all human beings have freedom of religion in Islam, and that religion is a personal relationship between the heart of the human being and their creator. So this is addressing, these first two things I said are addressing the misconception behind the question. Now the third piece you could say is that there were people who changed their religion during the time of Prophet Muhammad and they were not killed or executed, but this hadith or this saying that you may have heard about is strictly or should be understood in terms of treason of people changing their religion and aiding and abetting an enemy during a time of hostile conflict. In all civilized nations, by the way, let me backtrack. I was in the United States military. Raheem, I cut him off from my reading all his bios, you do not know that. In the Uniform Code of Military Justice to this day in America, anyone who aids or abets the enemy during a time of conflict can be convicted of treason, and that is punishable by death. In basically all countries, if you're in the military and you switch, okay, maybe it's not religion, let's say you denounce your citizenship during a time of war and you go to aid the enemy during a time of conflict, if you're captured in American military law, you can be punished to death by firing squad or hanging in 2010. So that gives you somewhat of how we would answer this question. This answer right here was also approved by our scholars, both Sunni and Shia. We had a gathering. CAIR gathered together our scholars in the year 2006 after the Danish caricatures, and we came up with a program. We came up with some answers of how to, there's so much smearing against Prophet Muhammad at the time with the Danish caricatures. We came up with certain answers to these questions that have some type of like religious connotations in terms of how to answer these things to the broader American public. So this answer I gave you right here is the answer basically that was approved by our local scholars, both from the Sunni and the Shia. Now number two, I love this one, I'm asked this one quite frequently. Why aren't the moderate Muslims, I'm putting this in quotes, moderate Muslims, why aren't the moderate Muslims speaking out against the Islamic terrorists and the Wahhabi extremists? Why aren't the moderate Muslims speaking out against the Islamic terrorists and the Wahhabi extremists? So we have three problematic issues with this question. First of all, what is a so-called moderate Muslim? Sometimes before you answer a question, you have to ask them a question. Okay, a moderate Muslim. What do you mean by moderate Muslim? Because moderate Muslim may be, well, you drink a little wine every once in a while because the doctor said one glass of red wine is good for the blood, or, you can live with you can be okay with same-sex marriage, or you can live with your boyfriend and girlfriend like the rest of American society, and you don't have to get married. I hope I'm not being too graphic, but I'm using this as an example because when many people in the broader American society think moderate Muslim, they think this, or you're in a Sufi group like the whirling darwish, and you believe that jihad is only jihad al-nafs, it's only the spiritual struggle, and there is no jihad regarding arms. No, I'm serious because I've asked this question to people, and they say, you have there's certain criteria. Sisters can't wear hijab. You have to read Rumi poems, and it's okay to have a nip every once in a while, a little red wine, or you're sick, you drink a little brandy, what do they call it? Imam Madir, hotty toddy, what do they call that? Hot toddy, yeah. They think this is a moderate Muslim, right? So you have to define for them and ask them, what is a moderate Muslim? So sometimes you have to go step by step. So I say, first of all, this is a redundant term because to be a practicing Muslim means following the way of moderation in all aspects of life. This is just for your knowledge. Allah made us to be the rightly guided community. We're supposed to go in the middle. Not too far to the right and be too rigid, not too far to the left and be so extra liberal that we just don't have any rules. Or I had a sister tell me one time that she doesn't wear hijab because she has the hijab in her heart. Okay, so why aren't the moderate Muslims speaking out? Okay, so first you may have to address what is a moderate Muslim? I'm glad you're enjoying yourself, but I'm saying this is real. This is real. I'm not making this up. This is real. Against the term is the term Islamic terrorist, and we don't use this term because, and this is sometimes where if a person is asking the question, you may need to ask them a question back, or you can have sometimes what's called righteous indignation. You don't have to be loud, say it in a nice tone. And so, well, do you ever talk about or label people Jewish terrorists, like the Jewish Defense League, or the Hutaris, Christian terrorists, or were the Tamil Tigers Hindu terrorists? Sometimes you need to ask the question back. Why are you using this term? Why have you made Islamic or Islam or Muslim and terrorist synonymous by labeling these terms? Because Islam preaches for the sanctity and the respect of all life. This is another thing too. Don't answer a question with a negation because you affirm the frame. Say what Islam is of what Islam isn't. Don't say Islam is against terrorism. They hear Islam and terrorism. Have you ever heard of a book, Don't Think of an Elephant, by George Lakoff? This is mandatory reading if you're an activist. Don't think of an elephant. Before I answer the last part of this question, I want you all to close your eyes for a second. Close your eyes for a second. Now I want you to clear your mind, and whatever you do, don't think of an elephant. Just think of anything else. Don't think of an elephant. Don't think of an elephant in Africa. Don't think of an elephant in India. Whatever you think about, don't think about an elephant. Open your eyes. What are you thinking about? You think about an elephant. You're thinking about an elephant. So when you repeat these things, Islam is against terrorism and Islam is against extremism, and you keep saying what Islam isn't, because the people have heard it so much, all they think is Islam and terrorism. You're reaffirming the frame. So say what Islam is. Islam is for the sanctity and preservation of all life, especially the human life. And Wahhabi extremists, and I know these may be some elaborate answers, but really when people ask these questions, you need to go back and challenge them or ask them about what do they mean by this term or that term, or why are they even using that term to begin with.